It is September the 10th, 1513. You're standing in a slaughterhouse of mud. The fighting has stopped, but the violence hasn't. Looters are swarming the field, ripping armour and clothes off 10 flawless noblemen every minute. They flip over a naked, mangled corpse and freeze. This body is different. Wrapped tightly around the man's waist, biting deep into his raw, infected flesh, is a heavy iron chain. You're staring at the corpse of King James IV of Scotland. This isn't just a fallen soldier. It is the last monarch in the British Isles to be butchered in combat. This iron belt wasn't a torture device from the enemy. It was his own secret penance, a weight he dragged into the catastrophe known as the Battle of Flodden. In just 3 hours, this man led the largest, most advanced army in Scottish history into a trap that wiped out an entire generation. How did a genius king end up naked in the English mud, shackled by his own guilt? Before diving into these forgotten stories of survival and suffering, if you enjoy learning about the hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. To understand the butchery, you have to understand the victim. James IV was not a fool. He was a Renaissance powerhouse. While England struggled for stability, James turned Scotland into a weapon. He spoke 8 languages. He funded alchemy labs, and he personally performed surgeries to test new medical theories. He didn't just build a navy, he built the Great Michael, a warship so massive it terrified the rest of Europe. He was brilliant, rich, and dangerously confident, but he was also haunted. That iron belt on his corpse, it tells the real story. Decades earlier, a teenage James led a rebellion that resulted in his own father's murder. The guilt broke him. He forged that iron chain and locked it around his waist as a permanent punishment. Every single year, on the anniversary of his father's death, he added another heavy link to the chain. He wanted to feel the weight increase as he aged. This psychological ticking clock drove him to seek redemption through glory. And in 1513 he saw his chance. His brother-in-law, Henry VIII, had invaded France, leaving England exposed. James saw an open goal. He didn't just declare war, he emptied his kingdom. He summoned the full might of Scotland. This was no ragtag militia. James marched south with the latest European plate armour, 100,000 troops, and a train of heavy siege cannons that were the envy of the world. They felt invincible. They crossed the River Tweed and smashed through English border fortresses with ease. They were the apex predators of the north. But they forgot one thing. War isn't fought on paper, and it isn't fought with guilt. It's fought in the dirt. As James marched his magnificent heavy army deeper into England, the skies turned black. The rain began to fall, torrential, relentless. English rain. It turned the battlefield into a glue trap. The stage was set, the trap was dug, the tragedy of Flodden was about to begin. While James was locking iron around his waist, a different kind of metal was moving across the chessboard of Europe. To understand why this slaughter happened, we have to look at the single most romantic and idiotic object in Scottish history, a turquoise ring. It arrived in Edinburgh in the hands of a French messenger. It wasn't from a lover, but from the Queen of France, Anne of Brittany. France was being hammered by the English, and in a desperate bid to open a second front, Queen Anne appealed directly to James's vanity. She sent him the ring off her own finger, along with a challenge that sounds like it was ripped from a fairy tale. Step just 1 pace into English ground for my sake. It was a trap wrapped in silk. James, the last true knight of the medieval age, took the bait. He didn't see a political manoeuvre. He saw a damsel in distress. He put the ring on. He committed his kingdom to war for a gesture. He thought he was entering a chivalric tournament where honour would decide the victor. He was wrong. He wasn't fighting a tournament. He was walking into the sphere of the most dangerous woman in Europe. James assumed that with Henry VIII away invading France, England was defenceless. He pictured a leaderless nation ripe for the taking, but he forgot who Henry had left in charge. Sitting on the throne in London as regent was Catherine of Aragon. Forget the sad, divorced woman you know from the later years of the Tudor era. In 1513, Catherine was 27 years old, heavily pregnant, and absolutely terrifying. She was the daughter of Isabella of Castile, the warrior queen who had driven the Moors out of Spain. War was in Catherine's DNA. While James was penning flowery letters of challenge, Catherine was signing death warrants. She didn't panic when the news of the massive Scottish invasion reached London. She didn't flee. She went to work. She famously stated that while her husband was busy capturing French towns, she was busy defending his kingdom. She ordered the fortification of the coast, she organised the supply lines, and she issued a cold, pragmatic order. The North must defend itself. She didn't send a young, hot-headed nobleman to meet James. She knew exactly what kind of war this would be. She needed a butcher, not a jouster. So she reactivated a man who was supposed to be retired, Thomas Howard, the Earl of Surrey. Surrey was 70 years old, ancient for the time. He was a relic, a man who had fought on the losing side of the Wars of the Roses and had spent decades clawing his way back to respectability. He was grumpy, arthritic, and desperate for one last chance to secure his family's future. Catherine knew that Surrey wouldn't fight for honour, he would fight for survival. She gave him the keys to the armoury and a simple directive: stop the Scots. The contrast couldn't have been sharper. In the north, James IV was treating war like a pageant, bringing his bishops, his poets, and his personal choir to the battlefield. In the south, Catherine of Aragon was treating war like a business transaction. She began sewing banners for the troops with her own hands, while simultaneously drafting the logistics for a counter-offensive that would make her husband's French campaign look like a skirmish. James thought he was marching against a distracted England. Instead, he was marching against the tactical heritage of the Spanish Reconquista, directed by a pregnant queen who had no patience for chivalry. The turquoise ring had started the game, but Catherine of Aragon was about to flip the board. If you had stood on the Borough Muir outside Edinburgh in August 1513, you wouldn't have seen an army. You would have seen a nation on the move. James the Arthur didn't just call for soldiers, he summoned a crusade.